Apple's Halloween software release coming soon.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to All Future Podcast, where we're having interesting, exciting, sometimes scary conversations about all the crazy stuff that's coming in technology. Today, we're going to cover, I think, almost all the bases here. A little consumer tech stuff, talking about the AI features coming out for the iPhone. And then, as always, I suspect we're going to go deep off the rails because looking on the notes right now, we're going to hit some AI-generated video. We're going to hit pure AI-generated content. We're going to talk about AI replacing all of us, evidently. I don't know. But let's get into it, man. The first thing coming up, pretty firm. Everyone seems to think this is the date that kind of everyone gets Apple Intelligence and not just people like you who are brave enough to use the beta. And that is October 28th. And that's going to be iOS 18.1 coming out.
Yes.
You're already on the beta. You already have these features. Should people be amped? Is this exciting?
I think it's pretty exciting, honestly. Yeah, it's this staggered rollout, which in some ways isn't great, but in some ways actually might let people understand these features a bit more instead of just dumping everything on them all at once. I don't really use the writing tools. I tried it once and had it rewrite something, and the person, without me telling them, said, "This sounds like AI." And then the new Siri UI is pretty nice, but I'm especially a fan of the notification and text summaries. I've had it many times where I open my phone, it has a little like 30 next to it, and then it gives me a like 2-sentence summary of what I'm expecting.
Popular guy over here. But yeah, I think especially someone like you, right? You're kind of juggling multiple things. You're wearing multiple hats between music stuff, the Tesla stuff, this podcast, just your life, right? So yeah, I could see how the text summaries would be pretty exciting.
Yeah. So I think pretty much everyone's going to like that to a degree. I've heard some people complain like, oh, I don't know if I can trust it and all this, but it's just to give you a quick glance to go, do I need to open this immediately or can I just let it go for a second?
Yeah. If it's something from someone important, you should probably read through the messages, right?
Yeah, exactly. And like that's what I do is it tells me, okay, I'm going to open this now and get all the details, but I have a general overview of what I'm expecting before clicking into it. So yeah, definitely very nice. A lot of people already have this in beta. You're not a fan of doing betas.
Yeah, I would say not a fan, maybe a strong word, but certainly not something I do. I just don't want to deal with it for one. And man, I need to use my phone. So and I know it's been a while since there's been kind of a big headline, oh, this beta breaks something. But that has happened before. Yeah. Especially sometimes it'll happen. And the way it'll happen, it's usually not broken in terms of like Apple first party stuff messing up, but some other apps that aren't compatible with the beta because those developers haven't released their updates to work with the new OS yet or something like that. And I'm always afraid it's going to happen in like the worst spot, like something I really need, like or some app or feature I need to work, and it just doesn't. Yeah. But you're a braver man than me, so you've just been rocking the beta. It seems pretty rock solid.
So far, yeah. I think I had one issue where I clicked the camera shutter button and then I just had a restart. Black screen.
That's a pretty fun. It's like, let me take this picture. Oh, nope, phone restarting.
Yeah, exactly. And then you're suddenly back to the Apple logo, and then it has a little prompt like, submit why this happened or whatever. But way better than in previous years. I don't know if that's just Apple getting better at it or if they're not changing quite as many things on these releases, so it's not as big of a jump and change. But yeah, so far it's been good. But if you're not wanting to take a risk, because you still are taking a little bit of a risk by going on a beta, October 28th seems to be the release date for 18.1. And it comes with all those features I just mentioned, among other things like memory creation in photos, which it will already kind of do for you, but you can prompt it with a sentence, which is kind of nice.
It's a little smarter version of it now, yeah.
And then 18.2 is reportedly coming in December. That's going to be what includes ChatGPT support, which I'm very curious to see because we're people who now use ChatGPT on our phones.
I'm in that ChatGPT life, man.
Yeah. So are we going to be using this instead? Is it sending out? Is it linking with your account? How is all that
Is it
going to
work? Be easier for me to use the integrated ChatGPT? I say integrated, whatever, going through the Apple OS than just hitting the ChatGPT shortcut.
Yeah. That will be very interesting to see. And then will you have to make an account because you're going to want it to have a certain amount of memory, and can you turn it off? So many questions there. Genmoji is another thing, supposedly coming in 18.2 in December, and Image Playground, which I think is all the stuff where you can do like background removal and
Yeah, it's
all
all
that stuff.
generative image stuff.
Yeah.
This makes sense for being the December one because this is the when people open their iPhone up on Christmas. This is the stuff they're going to want to play around with, right? Like, this is going to be the things that make it seem like they have a new phone, a cooler phone.
Yeah.
So yeah, the people are absolutely going to want these. So it wouldn't surprise me if this is like a mid-December update. You know, maybe probably December 20th at the latest, but probably even before that. You know? Because yeah, like these are the more headliner kind of Apple Intelligence features, and that is generative image stuff. It's immediate things you can show people. We were just talking about how a lot of AI companies invest a lot in arts AI things because it's something you can actually show people and they can understand it much quicker than, oh, we use this AI model to deconstruct proteins and DNA or whatever. So
read this entire essay and understand that AI wrote this and it's actually good. Like, it's way easier to just look at a photo.
So that's why I think that's smart. I think that these are kind of the holiday things. But the next little bullet point here is kind of our almost maybe the more disappointing news, really, and that they're so 18.2 having all the ChatGPT, Genmoji stuff. 18.3 sometime early 2025. Really unclear exactly what's going to be in that. So we're talking 18.4 with Siri coming ? Maybe we're not really sure. So let me get a little conspiracy on you. Let's say I'm Apple and I'm making the coolest new HomePod ever. It's got a screen. It's got a A37 chip in it. I don't know. Robotic arm. Every stupid rumor that are about this thing, let's say it's coming true. What a great thing to introduce with that, the new improved Siri.
Yeah.
And so I could see a spring smart home kind of Apple event tied in with, and we're rolling out this new Siri that is actually going to be super impressive and awesome. And we're going to put things in it we didn't even tell you about yet. It's going to understand you. It's never going to screw it up. And so that kind of is what I'm thinking is what's going on here. Is that, well, what's really going on here is that it's not ready yet because Apple wasn't ready for AI stuff. But it makes it kind of a little marketing synergy there if they hold it to launch with a product.
Yeah. And you're on, I think you do Mac betas though, right? So you're on Sequoia, so you have the latest. You have Apple Intelligence?
I'm not. I will do a Mac beta, but I'm not on this. So I do have Sequoia, but I have no Apple Intelligence features on my Mac yet.
Gotcha.
So,
I don't do it on my main computer because I record music and stuff, and I can't have it breaking any of that. But on my laptop, I do have it, and it's like notification summaries and all that stuff. It's pretty nice. Now that I'm used to it on my phone, and the fact that it's also on my laptop when I get iMessages, it's pretty nice.
Yeah, that's going to be a weird thing that's going to happen is people who are running kind of split devices, maybe, like who are going to be used to things like notification summary, but let's say they're still running an Intel Mac, or maybe they've got an iPhone 14 but have a new iPad Pro or something like that. Like you're going to like get like this weird kind of dichotomy between, oh, I'm used to this feature and now it's not here. Maybe I should think about upgrading. And
that's where Tim Cook is.
Tim Cook, yes. and someone at the Apple Store gets their wings, I guess. You know, like they're very excited. So, I can totally see that happening.
For the most part, all of these features I think look pretty cool, and then we're seeing them roll out slowly. One thing I will complain about is it is weird to get the new Siri interface, but have it not be any better. Because I'm very much expecting it to be better.
It's dumb Siri, but it does the full screen thing and stuff.
Yeah. So it takes over the full screen, and I'm like, ooh, Apple Intelligence Siri, and then it's like, oh wow, it really messed up that request. But all this goes to show, the competition in the AI space. It's always good to see, but it's also a little scary at times. So you were talking about art stuff, but before we get there. There's a new Gemini searchable Gmail on iOS. So this is essentially just Gmail integrating Gemini, correct?
Right. So they're integrating Gemini, which is Google's LLM, into not only just Gmail but also into Google Photos. So essentially giving you a smart LLM search, which is great and cool. like that's what you need, right? Especially in things like email and photos, because where it has been in the past, right? You're like, hey, I've got this email I'm looking for. What you need to know then is some kind of actual text in that email somewhere, right? You need to know like who's the sender, what was in the subject line, what was in the body maybe. And let's say you're vague on it. Good luck, right? Yeah. Good luck. And you get all these things. It's like, oh, I want to see where that email I got for that product that shipped to me that I I bought from Tesla.com or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
but the actual thing from the email is sent from like techshippers.co or something. And so
Yeah.
you like can never find it or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So having that kind of thing built in the email, photos especially helpful for, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
you can say, hey, talking about Apple adding the thing to make memories and stuff, but when you have the LLM stuff built in there, you can say, I want to bring me every photo I have where I'm wearing a yellow dress, right? That would be a really difficult thing for the current photo search systems to find as they're set up now. So they can, right now, they're good if you say, hey, show me pet pictures. Oh, cool. They kind of know that it'll get that right. But if you say, like, show me dynamic pet pictures where it's a blue sky background taken at this location that are formatted for this aspect. You can give it all this kind of input through an LLM, and it'll get that and bring it up. I think it's very cool. Obviously, Google is ahead of Apple on this right now because Apple stuff isn't really there even in beta yet, and then this Google stuff, you're about to be able to start using it immediately.
Yeah.
And they're just going to like start integrating into a thing. If you just launch the Gmail app or go to gmail.com or whatever, or use Google Photos, that's just what's going to be there.
Yeah.
Just another example of, Google being a little bit ahead of Apple on this. And here's a hypothetical situation for you. And this was brought up, my buddy, John Redensher, who's made tech YouTube videos years. I would say probably one of the first tech YouTubers, I would say, like, I'd say one of the original 3 people making tech YouTube on YouTube, I guess, maybe tech YouTube videos. He asked me this hypothetical the other day, and he's thinking about making a big, long documentary kind of, not, I say a 20, 30-minute kind of thing on it. But he's like, if all of a sudden you had disappeared from the world, right, and you came back today and you had to pick a smartphone, would you pick an iPhone based on if someone just handed you these 2 phones and listed all the feature sets? And right now you got to go, I think almost everyone would pick a Google-based phone because they haven't been in that ecosystem, gotten used to using it. And if you just look on paper at these feature sets, these are nice and they're ready right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sure Apple's going to catch up with this, and the ultimate irony, of course, I guess, is that Apple users will be able to use all this. Just use Gmail and Google Photos instead of the Apple stuff, and boom, you're already using it. So
Yeah, so maybe that would be your argument is you go, wait a second.
Wait, I can use everything? Yeah, I'm going to use my iPhone. Maybe you'd say that.
Yeah, because that is interesting. A lot of the argument would be like, oh, Apple ecosystem stuff. And it's like, well, I'm not in an ecosystem
I've
yet.
lived on Mars or
I have
whatever it is.
nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a interesting question. But speaking of Google, they have this thing, Notebook LM, which I think we talked about a little bit last week.
Yeah.
We didn't entirely know too much about it, but I gave it a try. And there's a thing where you can generate a podcast. What's cool about Notebook LM is you input all your sources, and then it makes something from that. So you can be writing something and then have it fill stuff out. You can have it write something, or you can have it generate a podcast with co-hosts. And this might be the scariest AI thing I've heard yet. So I'm a drummer, and I put in a few different articles about like my bio, and then one particular article about this gig that I played that was reviewed by somebody. And so this is what it came up with. I'm just going to click play right here.
So picture this. You're all set for a big presentation, right? The kind of where you've only got one shot to really knock it out of the park. And bam, your trusty laptop decides to take an unscheduled vacation.
Oh man, I can feel the phantom sweat just thinking about it.
Right. Total nightmare fuel.
Yeah.
But you know who really can't afford a tech fail? Live musicians.
Ooh, for sure.
They're out there, no safety
Good
net,
transition right there.
pure improvisation.
Okay, so
Which brings us
they're
to
talking
tonight's
about
theme.
this part on the gig because one of the keys broke on the Rhodes that the piano player played on, and he just played through it, of course, because there's no other option. But I'm going to scroll, I think, like further in, it's giving my bio.
Melissa Morgan, Dave Damiani, the list goes on.
Wow, he's clearly a first call drummer, the kind who can fit seamlessly into any musical situation.
And he's played at all the iconic LA jazz spots. The Blue Whale, Catalina Bar, and Grill, Vitello's. Basically, if you've seen great jazz in LA,
A lot of pronunciation
chances
is
are Ryan
wrong.
Shaw was holding down the rhythm section.
It's all about connections in the music world, and it sounds like he's made quite a few.
And get this, he's also on those new Charlie Brown specials for Apple TV Plus, including Snoopy in Space.
Seriously, that's amazing. Talk about a dream gig playing those classic Peanuts tunes.
Oh, hey.
So, yeah, these are all going... This is one of the craziest ones to me because this is somewhat convincing. When you listen to a whole one, you're kind of starting to go like, they're just naming facts back and forth, but the way that they're like interrupting each other and bouncing off...
I mean, they fed this thing a million podcasts to get that kind of cadence and rhythm. What I noticed that the female host, that's all AI, right?
Yeah.
The woman voice there, like the guy will say something that's kind of half funny and she'll kind of laugh, and I always find myself kind of laughing at things you say, like that are that was mildly humorous, but like in real life I would never laugh at that, but in like the heightened world of a podcast, you kind of do that, right? So you kind of elevate it a little. And this does that remarkably well. I think you would have, if you just uploaded this to Apple Podcasts, people would think this is a real podcast.
I think so.
Like it's like the voices sound like those kind of, the ones that like, the NPR 2-host podcasts, like the ones that maybe like the Smithsonian has this podcast called Side Door. This sounds exactly like this, like exactly like this.
Yeah.
Because it's a very facts-based podcast, and they always started with these weird little anecdotes to kind of get you into it and then get you into the actual topic. So this is, I think, amazing technology here that's producing this. A little scary because I do think it's if you didn't know the pronunciations, as you pointed out, because that's really where they mess up on some of the pronunciations.
They pronounce Jeff Goldblum.
Jeff Goldblum, yeah, like it misses like the But if you didn't have that problem, you would think this is 100% real people. So that's the scary part of it on that side. But what Notebook LM's kind of made for is for people to learn things. So like, man, what a great way for some people to learn stuff. Like if I had to study up for some kind of presentation or something, right? Or let's say I'm introducing you at something. I would throw these articles in, and on the way to the event, I'd have this fake podcast playing in the car. So all of a sudden I know this stuff. I get this idea of like what to say, what to emphasize. I can even steal all their attention getting stories, So yeah, like this is one of those things that's like, I'm sure this is going to be very helpful to a lot of people. And if you're out there right now and studying stuff, go try this out, man. Just load up all your notes and stuff into this thing, have it make a podcast. But man, just another direct nail in the coffin for the exact way me and you make a living. And not just on podcasts, but just in the arts, man. Like you're like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Because podcast is almost the easiest thing to fake with AI, because especially if you're a traditional non-video podcast, you wouldn't. Yeah, you just sound like. I'm sure people are already making fake podcasts with this and uploading them to just that podcast platforms to try to monetize them.
Yeah, I'm quite scared at this one, because this is where we're at today, and where does this go in the future? It goes to where we can't tell the difference, and it's getting all the exposition right, it's getting the pronunciation right, it's getting the way people go off the rails more accurate. Crazy stuff. But
and I'm sure you can even like if I don't know if you ever use 11 Labs as the AI voice clone system, which is really great at cloning voices, but it has this slider that basically is make this guy sound super professional or make them sound insane. So if you slide that thing all the way, they have they probably sound like a lot like I do on this podcast, where it's a lot of verbal pauses and ticks and weirdness, because that's how people talk. And if you listen to how they talk, it's the same way. Like especially again, they'll do things like, I didn't know that. And they'll start to talk and like stutter stop and get into something. And so once you like kind of integrate that all into a single package, right? I mean, I'm sure this is going to happen within the next year or two, is that we're going to be able to feed a system like this a couple episodes of this show, and it could just make it. Yeah. Right? And like it would just all of a sudden have me ranting about UBI and you doing some transition thing to the to the next topic, and it would just do it. So game over, content creators.
Yeah. And then on the other side, if right now you still have maybe the saving grace of doing a video podcast, but Meta this week announced their video generation technology, their software for that, and it looks pretty good.
So this is called Meta Movie Gen. So they didn't come up with some goofy name for it or something. They just kind of named it what it is. Pretty good looking generative video. We've seen a lot. We've seen Veo, I believe, is a Google one. We saw them. OpenAI has Sora. Yep. There's several others out there. There's ones that people can log in and use right now. They usually make fairly short clips and isn't super great at realism. This looks pretty solid in a lot of these videos. If you see a lot of this, you can tell right away. If I was watching this just as I'm scrolling through TikTok or something, maybe I wouldn't. It would probably look real, especially on a low-res screen or something, if you dirty up this footage a little. I would say there's two other things that are interesting on this Meta product here, is that it'll do sound. So it'll sync, it'll create whatever, the natural sound of the environment that's happening, and put a music track to it if you want. So pretty solid looking kind of nature B-roll, if you imagine. Imagine those transition shots in like National Geographic documentaries. It kind of is making those already, like pretty convincingly. But you can also load in a video you already have it add in the sound to it based on AI. So RIP L Foley artist and people who do that kind of work in the movie industry, because this kind of does that. And it'll go one step further. You can load in a video you've already shot and then have it manipulate that video with AI. So like the real kind of spooky conspiracy things they'll do in movies, like this does it. They have an example where someone like releases one of those floating lanterns and they have it change it to a magical bubble that pops or whatever. That looks pretty good. There's also one where there's this woman who's wearing a VR headset, presumably a Meta Quest. I didn't look at it that close.
It better be.
I imagine
right?
it's a Meta Quest. And then they have it change to different things through the prompts. So they're like, oh, make that I think they make it like a steampunk kind of glasses. And then they say, oh, just remove the headset. And then it does that, again, pretty convincingly.
Yeah.
The other thing, too, this does, a lot of the the AI-generated video we've seen, a lot of it's slow-mo stuff. This does a little bit real time. So it looks a little better. I'm just scrolling through some of these. There's one where this woman's drinking coffee in a pumpkin patch or something. And you can see that they have loaded a facial reference to how to make the woman look. Does a pretty good job of that.
Yeah, I can see maybe what would be described as airbrushing on her hair.
Yeah.
But I don't know. This is pretty great.
That's like the other thing too. Like so many people, especially in the kind of online video world, are so used to filtering the hell out of stuff that those things that we see and know it's AI, and a lot of it is that smoothing. You know, it loses a lot of the kind of texture of a thing, but people are so used to that they're being, oh, this is still real, right? Yeah. And if I took this and we're looking at the shot right now of the woman drinking the coffee. If I put like a film grain overlay on this, maybe stuck a fake lens flare on the side, it would hide that it was fake pretty convincingly for almost everyone. And this looks way better than anything they've done in like Star Wars to bring back dead actors or something like that. This is way better than like the current level of like traditional CGI people are doing. And was made with was a 2-sentence prompt that took someone probably 10 seconds to type in. Yeah. So this is really good. You guys go check out the website. You can see a lot of the footage and hear the ones with the sounds and stuff. Yeah. But if you combine that with this Notebook LM fake podcast thing we just saw, just another example of that. Guys, like the average person's not going to be able to tell what's real and what's fake at all, even less so than they already can.
Yeah. But at least we're getting notification summaries from Apple.
Perfect.